The notification arrived at 3:47 a.m., cutting through the silence of Marcus Chen's penthouse apartment like a digital scream. His phone buzzed against the marble nightstand, the blue glow illuminating his face as he squinted at the screen. The message was from his automated monitoring system, the one that tracked every line of code, every commit, every digital fingerprint of his development team. Anomaly detected, core developer David Kowalski, last activity, 72 hours ago. Project launch, T-18 hours. Marcus sat up, his heart already racing. David wasn't just any developer. He was the architect of FlowChain, the revolutionary DeFi protocol that promised to change everything. The man who held the master keys to $200 million in pre-launch funding. The genius who had built their smart contracts from the ground up. And now, 18 hours before the most anticipated crypto launch of the year, David Kowalski had vanished without a trace. Marcus threw on his clothes and raced to the FlowChain headquarters, a gleaming tower in downtown Singapore that had become the epicenter of the crypto world's attention. The building hummed with anticipation even at 4 in the morning. Security guards nodded as he badged through multiple checkpoints, their faces tense with the weight of protecting what could be the future of decentralized finance. The elevator seemed to take forever. Marcus's mind raced through the possibilities. David had been acting strange lately, more paranoid than usual. He'd started working odd hours, avoiding team meetings, speaking in cryptic messages about external pressures and watching eyes. But Marcus had attributed it to launch stress. Everyone was on edge. The 32nd floor was eerily quiet. FlowChain's offices sprawled across the entire level, a maze of glass-walled conference rooms and open workspaces that normally buzzed with the energy of the world's brightest blockchain developers. Now it felt like a tomb. Marcus headed straight for David's office, his footsteps echoing in the empty corridor. The door was locked, but his executive keycard gained him access. Inside, everything looked normal at first glance. David's multiple monitors still displayed lines of code, frozen in time. His coffee cup sat half-empty, a ring of brown residue marking its abandonment. But something was wrong. The desk drawers had been opened hastily, papers scattered. David's backup hard drives were missing from their usual spot beside his keyboard. Most concerning of all, his hardware wallet was gone. Marcus's blood ran cold. That wallet contained the master private keys to FlowChain's entire infrastructure. Without it, they couldn't deploy the final smart contracts. Without it, the launch would be impossible. His phone buzzed again. This time it was Sarah Kim, FlowChain's head of security, calling from her home in Seoul. "Marcus, we have a problem," her voice crackled through the international connection. "I've been monitoring our systems all night. Someone accessed David's administrative account 3 hours ago. They downloaded the entire codebase." "That's impossible," Marcus said, but even as the words left his mouth, he knew they weren't. David's account has multi-factor authentication. Biometric locks. No one else has access. "Unless David gave them access," Sarah said quietly. "Or unless David is the one who accessed it." The implications hit Marcus like a physical blow. If David had taken the code, if he disappeared with the master keys, then FlowChain wasn't just facing a delayed launch. They were facing complete annihilation. But that was only the beginning of what would become the most sophisticated exit scam in cryptocurrency history. Marcus spent the next 6 hours in a desperate search for clues. He called David's apartment building, his gym, his favorite restaurants. No one had seen him. His social media accounts had gone dark. His phone went straight to voicemail. It was as if David Kowalski had simply ceased to exist. By 10 a.m., word had leaked to the crypto community. The FlowChain Telegram channel, which had over 200,000 members, began buzzing with rumors. The price of Flow tokens, which had been trading at premium prices on pre-launch exchanges, started to wobble. Marcus called an emergency meeting with the board of directors. They gathered in the executive conference room, a dozen of the world's most powerful crypto investors, each one representing millions of dollars in FlowChain funding. The tension in the room was suffocating. "Gentlemen," Marcus began, his voice steady despite the chaos in his mind, "we have a situation." He explained what they knew. David's disappearance. The missing hardware wallet. The unauthorized access to their systems. As he spoke, he watched the faces around the table grow progressively paler. Victoria Chin, the representative from Dragon Capital, was the first to speak. "Are you telling us that one person has the ability to completely destroy this project? That there are no safeguards?" David insisted on maintaining sole control of the master keys, Marcus explained. He said it was for security purposes. Too many people with access creates vulnerabilities. Well, it seems like too few people with access creates bigger vulnerabilities, said James Morrison from Blockvest. What's our exposure here? Marcus swallowed hard. Total investor funding is $215 million. Pre-orders for Flow tokens are worth another $300 million. If we can't launch. He didn't need to finish the sentence. Everyone in the room understood the mathematics of catastrophe. But the real shock came when Sarah Kim burst into the conference room, her laptop in hand and her face white with panic. We've been monitoring the blockchain, she announced. Someone just moved $50 million worth of ethereum from our treasury wallet. The transaction was signed with David's private key. The room erupted in chaos. Voices overlapped as board members shouted questions, demands, accusations. Marcus felt the world spinning around him. This wasn't just a missing person case anymore. This was theft on an unprecedented scale. There's more, Sarah continued, her voice cutting through the noise. The transaction included a message. It's encoded, but I think it's meant for us. She connected her laptop to the conference room display. On the screen appeared a long string of numbers and letters, the cryptographic signature of the blockchain transaction. But embedded within it, like a hidden message in a digital bottle, was a decoded text. The house of cards is falling. The watchers are watching. Trust no one. DK. The watchers. David had mentioned them before in those paranoid moments during the final weeks of development. Marcus had dismissed it as stress-induced delusions. But now, staring at the message on the screen, he began to wonder if David's paranoia had been justified. What happened next shocked the entire crypto world and sent ripples through every major exchange from New York to Tokyo. Within hours of the board meeting, someone began systematically attacking FlowChain's infrastructure. It started with their website going down, then their social media accounts being compromised. Fake announcements appeared claiming that FlowChain was a scam, that the entire project had been designed to steal investor funds. But these weren't random attacks. They were too coordinated, too sophisticated. Someone with intimate knowledge of FlowChain's systems was orchestrating the destruction from the inside. Marcus worked frantically with his remaining development team to trace the attacks. They followed digital breadcrumbs across multiple servers, through proxy networks and encrypted channels. The trail led them to a discovery that changed everything they thought they knew about David Kowalski. Marcus, you need to see this, called out Jennifer Liu, one of their blockchain analysts. She was staring at her screen with a mixture of confusion and horror. I've been analyzing the code that was downloaded from David's account. It's not just our code. There are additions, modifications, backdoors. Marcus rushed to her workstation. On the screen was FlowChain's smart contract code, but it had been altered in subtle ways. Hidden functions had been added, ones that would allow unauthorized access to funds. Kill switches that could shut down the entire protocol with a single command. When were these changes made? Marcus asked. That's the thing, Jennifer replied. According to the timestamps, these modifications were made months ago. David has been building these backdoors into our system from the very beginning. The revelation hit Marcus like a sledgehammer. David hadn't just stolen their funds and disappeared. He had been planning this betrayal for months, carefully constructing the perfect exit strategy while pretending to be their most trusted developer. But the mystery deepened when they discovered that David hadn't acted alone. The blockchain analysis revealed a complex web of transactions, all coordinated with military precision. The $50 million that had been moved from their treasury hadn't disappeared into a single wallet. Instead, it had been split and distributed across hundreds of addresses, each one receiving a carefully calculated amount. This is money laundering on a massive scale, said Sarah, who had flown in from Seoul to help with the investigation. But look at the pattern. These aren't random amounts. They're following a specific algorithm. She pulled up a visualization of the transaction network. It looked like a digital spider web with the stolen funds flowing outward in carefully orchestrated streams. But at the center of the web wasn't David's wallet. It was something much more sinister. The funds were being funneled through a series of mixing services and privacy coins, eventually converging on a single address that belonged to a previously unknown organization called the Prometheus Group. Marcus had never heard of Prometheus, but when they began investigating, they discovered that this mysterious organization had been linked to several other high-profile crypto thefts over the past 2 years. Always operating in the shadows, always one step ahead of law enforcement, always vanishing with millions of dollars in stolen digital assets. But David's message, "The watchers are watching," suddenly made sense. He hadn't been paranoid. He had been recruited. The investigation revealed that David had been approached by Prometheus agents 6 months before FlowChain's launch. They had offered him something that went beyond money: protection. David had been receiving death threats, his family had been followed, his personal information had been leaked online. The crypto world, for all its promises of decentralization and freedom, had become a dangerous place for those who held significant power. Prometheus had offered him a way out. Help them execute the perfect heist, and they would provide him with a new identity, a new life, complete protection from the forces that had been hunting him. But even this revelation was just the surface of a much deeper conspiracy. As Marcus and his team dug deeper into the Prometheus group, they discovered that the organization wasn't just stealing cryptocurrency. They were systematically targeting the most promising DeFi projects, infiltrating their development teams, and either stealing their funds or forcing them to abandon their projects entirely. The pattern was always the same. A key developer would begin acting paranoid, claiming they were being watched or threatened. Then they would disappear, taking with them the keys to millions of dollars in investor funds. The projects would collapse, the investors would lose everything, and another promising innovation would be destroyed before it could threaten the existing financial system. FlowChain wasn't just a victim of theft. They were a casualty in a secret war being waged against the decentralized finance revolution. But the most shocking discovery came when they traced the ultimate source of Prometheus's funding. The money trail led through a maze of offshore accounts and shell companies, finally ending at a consortium of traditional financial institutions that had been quietly working to destroy the DeFi ecosystem from within. Major banks, investment firms, and government agencies had been secretly funding Prometheus's operations, using them as a weapon against the cryptocurrency projects that threatened their monopoly on financial services. David hadn't just been recruited by criminals. He had been recruited by the very system that cryptocurrency was designed to replace. Marcus realized that they were facing an enemy with unlimited resources, government connections, and the ability to destroy any project that came too close to success. FlowChain hadn't failed because of bad security or poor planning. They had failed because they had been targeted for elimination by forces that would stop at nothing to maintain their control over the global financial system. The revelation should have been the end of the story. FlowChain was destroyed, their investors had lost hundreds of millions of dollars, and David Kowalski had disappeared into the shadow world of the Prometheus group. Justice seemed impossible when the criminals were protected by the very institutions that were supposed to enforce the law. But Marcus Chen wasn't ready to give up. Using his remaining resources and connections, Marcus began building a new kind of investigation. He reached out to other victims of Prometheus attacks, creating a secret network of developers, investors, and researchers who had been targeted by the organization. Together, they began mapping the full extent of the conspiracy. What they discovered was breathtaking in its scope. Prometheus had been responsible for over 30 major crypto thefts, totaling more than $2 billion in stolen funds. They had infiltrated projects across every major blockchain, from Ethereum to Binance Smart Chain to Solana. Their network of recruited insiders included some of the most respected names in the cryptocurrency space. But they also discovered something that gave them hope. Prometheus wasn't invincible. Their operations required careful coordination and precise timing. They relied on their recruited insiders to maintain their cover and execute their plans. And most importantly, they had made mistakes. Working with a team of blockchain forensics experts, Marcus's group began tracing the digital footprints that Prometheus had left behind. They analyzed transaction patterns, code signatures, and communication metadata. Slowly, they began to piece together the true identities of the organization's leadership. The breakthrough came when they discovered that one of Prometheus's money laundering operations had been compromised. A single transaction had been made without proper mixing, leaving a direct link between a known Prometheus wallet and a real-world bank account. The account belonged to Richard Blackwood, a former CIA operative who had transitioned into private security work after leaving the agency. Public records showed that Blackwood had been hired by a consortium of financial institutions to provide cybersecurity consulting services. In reality, he had been running Prometheus's operations from a high-security facility in Switzerland. But exposing Blackwood was just the beginning. Marcus and his team realized that they needed to do more than just identify their enemies. They needed to fight back. Using the same tactics that had been used against them, they began launching coordinated attacks against Prometheus's infrastructure. They hacked into their communication systems, exposed their money laundering operations, and began releasing evidence of their crimes to the public. The campaign culminated in a massive data dump that revealed the full extent of the conspiracy. Internal documents showed how traditional financial institutions had been secretly funding the destruction of DeFi projects. Email chains revealed the identities of recruited insiders. Transaction records proved that billions of dollars had been stolen and laundered through Prometheus's networks. The release of this information sent shockwaves through both the cryptocurrency world and the traditional financial system. Regulators launched investigations, law enforcement agencies began making arrests, and the public finally understood the true scope of the war that had been waged against financial innovation. David Kowalski was eventually found in a safe house in Switzerland where he had been living under a false identity provided by Prometheus. When he was arrested, he agreed to cooperate with authorities in exchange for a reduced sentence. His testimony revealed even more details about the conspiracy and helped law enforcement track down other members of the organization. Richard Blackwood and several other Prometheus leaders were eventually arrested and charged with conspiracy, money laundering, and theft. The traditional financial institutions that had funded their operations faced massive fines and regulatory sanctions. The cryptocurrency industry began implementing new security measures to prevent similar infiltrations in the future. But for Marcus Chen, the victory was bittersweet. FlowChain was gone, destroyed by forces that had been determined to prevent its success from the moment it was conceived. The investors who had believed in the project had lost their money, and the innovative technology that could have revolutionized decentralized finance had been buried in the wreckage of the conspiracy. Yet the fight had revealed something important. The cryptocurrency revolution wasn't just about technology or money. It was about power and the lengths that established institutions would go to maintain their control over the global financial system. The battle for decentralized finance wasn't just being fought in code and smart contracts. It was being fought in the shadows by intelligence agencies and criminal organizations with billions of dollars and the future of money itself at stake. As Marcus stood in his empty office looking out at the Singapore skyline, he understood that the war was far from over. New projects would emerge, new technologies would be developed, and new attempts would be made to create a truly decentralized financial system. And the forces that had destroyed FlowChain would be waiting for them, ready to corrupt, steal, and destroy anything that threatened their power. But now at least, the cryptocurrency community knew what they were really fighting against. And knowledge, Marcus realized, was the first step toward victory. The developer who vanished before launch had taken more than just their money and their code. He had taken their innocence, their belief that they were simply building better technology in a competitive marketplace. In its place, he had left something much more valuable, an understanding of the true nature of the battle they were fighting and the determination to win it at any cost. The story of FlowChain's destruction became a cautionary tale in the cryptocurrency world, but it also became a rallying cry. Other projects began implementing new security measures, creating redundant systems, and building communities that could resist infiltration and corruption. The lessons learned from Marcus Chen's investigation helped protect countless other projects from similar attacks. And somewhere in the digital shadows, the next generation of financial revolutionaries began planning their own attacks against the system that had tried to destroy them. The war for the future of money was far from over, but now both sides understood exactly what they were fighting for. If you enjoyed it, please like, share, and subscribe to FictionWire Crypto. This is a fictional story created purely for entertainment.